Thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Maul.
And welcome back to week 14 of the NFL season, coming off week 13 after we watched the game last night. See something I've never seen: Charlie Brown try to kick a football on a football field and not even just completely whiff, but just dig into the dirt like a 4-iron when you're trying to drive the green from 200 yards out after the green clears, and you're like, I'll hit it, and absolutely not. Kick rocks.
I mean, I've never seen, you talked about it when we were on the phone the other day, like Pat McAfee, the dudes that are kicking at colleges, kids that are never kicked before in their life, had better attempts at field goals than that last night. Like, that was the most Bush League thing I've ever seen in my life. Because it wasn't even like he kicked right in front of the ball. That was like a solid 2 feet behind the ball. It's like, are you drunk? Like, what? And I was telling this earlier, I hate that my mind goes to this, but when I see something like that, especially in the NFL, where it's like, it's just a routine, like, you're a professional kicker. I don't know what his contract is like, but we'll just say it's like $1 million a year. Like, how are you getting paid? And you couldn't even make contact. Like, it's one thing if you shank it or you kick it low and it gets blocked, or what. You didn't even make contact with the ball. And my mind immediately is investigate that man. Like, what bet did he have on himself that he wasn't going to make a field goal tonight? Because I don't know how that gets recorded in the box score. Because he didn't make contact with it. I don't know if it's considered a missed field goal, or if it looks in the box score like they went for it on 4th down and the poor holder takes a sack.
I hope whatever they do it as, it's something that's even more negative than a miss. That should be annotated like the asterisk for misses, of just being like, this was the worst miss we've ever seen in our entire life. So I would rather you kick the ball and hit a grandma in the stands off of the 5-yard line than what you did last night. That was awful.
Two kicking records broken in the same year. Cam Little with the I don't even know how long it was, 70 yards, 71 yards or something like that. And then Younghoe Koo, well, let's just call it negative. How far did he kick behind the ball? 2 yards? Negative 2-yard kick.
Ugh, gross. Yeah, that was hard to watch. Of a week that was just, we were sort of talking earlier, that just upset city in terms of NFL weeks, especially from, like you say, your survivor pool. I will say this, we've talked on the episode about how we did survivor pick'ems. I got knocked out early, week 6 or something. Had 3 picks go down. Tennessee, came back on Arizona when a dude couldn't hold on the ball, crossing a goal line, all this stuff. Well, then Maul, we didn't even talk about this. Maul bet on the Bills to beat the Dolphins a few weeks ago. That was his last remaining survivor pick, loses. And Maul is heated. We literally had a golf trip. He can't talk about anything else than putting money on the Bills. Heated. And he finally got a little bit of reprieve this week because he was taking a look at who he had picked, and he's like, I would have stuck with him. I would have taken the Rams to beat the Panthers, and lo and behold, Matt Stafford's like, oh, you think that would have worked out? Let me yeet this 3 times to the Panthers, of which I'll just ask you, dude, who are these Panthers? I can't figure them out.
Dude, we kind of talked like this on the college episode, and for whatever reason, I feel like it's transpiring over into the pros as well. We already talked about the Eagles, but there's so many teams. You don't usually see this kind of inconsistency, good and bad, from the pros. There's usually there's the good teams that are kind of always good, the middle of the road teams that do whatever, and then the bad teams that are always bad. But it just seems like this year, and we know it's always the any given Sunday, right? But it feels like this year is any given Sunday squared, because I have never seen this type of inconsistency from teams that the Falcons are another one. It's very, very difficult to pick winners and losers this year. And I mean, I don't hate it. You know, it's making for good, interesting football. But sometimes it also makes for like really bad football. And you're like, God, these games suck.
I mean, it can be so bad that then you find out where your offensive coordinator lives and you go egg his home like the Eagles did.
That's not the most Eagles story. I mean, you can throw snowballs at Santa Claus. I'm not surprised that you'd egg your own coach's house. Like when you're calling out players when babies are falling out of burning buildings, like that's Philadelphia for you.
Yeah, that just added to the Philadelphia lore in my mind, of which I do want to I'm trying to figure out how to, I guess going in the Thursday night game will be a good way to like bring this up and get your thoughts on this. So Dallas playing the Lions, Detroit's -3. When you take a look at the last 2 Dallas wins, you sit back and they go, you beat the Eagles and the Chiefs. And if we were talking last year or 2 years ago, I would sit back and be like, man, Dallas is a really good team. And I think that's sort of like the media right now is they're like looking at Dallas and they're like, oh, I think that they could, you know, possibly win a Super Bowl. Look at how they're playing. And I just sort of sit back and I go, this year's Eagles and this year's Chiefs, like the Chiefs right now aren't in the playoffs. Like they're not one of the top 7 teams. They're on the hunt. They pretty much need to win out. The Eagles, I mean, we're talking about a team that has looked, if they somehow find enough ways to win a few more games for the rest of the year, they'll get in. But at no point are you putting any money on them to win. Like they look like the first team to go out. I just sort of sit back and look at how these games are going, and I question it's how I'm looking at this Thursday night game. Like I can't figure out, like, do I think Dallas has a good offense? Absolutely. But do I think that they're as good as their last 2 wins? No. Mainly because of the teams that they played. Does that make any sense?
No, it does, and it's one of those like recency bias things of like, don't get me wrong, the Cowboys winning both those games are huge for the Cowboys, but like in our minds, I feel like they mean more because we're basing it still off of kind of last year's results than what's currently happening in front of our faces. That being said, you know me, I'm one of the biggest Dallas haters out there, but like their defense has significantly improved. I'm not saying they're like really good yet, but and again, we know the struggles that the Eagles and the Chiefs have had this year, but their defense has significantly improved, and I know there was never a question about their offense all year. You know, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are both dogs. Dak is playing really well. They're running the ball, I think, just, I wouldn't say great, but like much better than we expected coming into the season, so that is helping. So really, to me, it just comes down to their defense. Like if their defense can stay with this momentum that they got going, they are. I really do think they're going to be a tough team to beat. And that being said, Thursday night's game, I mean, the Lions, just like everybody else, have shown these games where it's just like, man, they're not very good. They might not make the playoffs, right? And like, you know, I think I picked them to win the NFC and like be up there with the Eagles. So with Dallas being able to stop the run, if they can get some pressure on Goff, we've seen, and Goff has proven throughout his career that like he does not handle pressure well. And it's been on full effect these last few weeks. So if Dallas can get some pressure, I would not be surprised to see Dallas run this one again on a short week.
I have Dallas in the game. And it's because the Lions' problem is that interior of the line. Combined with the fact of what you said, I saw a stat a few weeks ago that it was something about like quarterbacks who have taken more than 5. There was a qualifier for it, but Goff is one of the worst performing quarterbacks in NFL history when under pressure. Like he does not do well under pressure, and this line is meant to give up pressure. Like that's all that they've done. I think that the only reason the Lions have won games is because of Jahmyr Gibbs and the ability to run.
Yes, but I was going to allude to that of like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at no point this season have I been like, man, Jared Goff went off this game. all their good victories have been like stemmed from, dude, Jahmyr Gibbs is a freak of an athlete. Like, and if they can't run the ball, they struggle because again, if you can just get pressure on Goff, you shut down that run. Like they turn into a not good football team because their defense also. I mean, their defense has never been really good, but like their offense has kind of been able to hide that. But when they struggle on offense, it makes it look even worse, and they get beat.
Yeah, quickly at that. I just both of these teams are the Cowboys are still in a position that I think that they can make the playoffs, and I think the Lions are well on their way to working their way right out. I think the Lions are going to miss the playoffs this year. Am I crazy for that?
No, I mean, especially with the Bears leading the division, and then they just lost to the Packers for the second time this season. Like that, they're on the bubble, but the teams above that bubble are all really strong. I mean, we talked about it. Like the last team in right now is the 9-4 San Francisco 49ers. Like that's crazy that the NFC is that competitive. So the Lions better start getting some wins here in a hurry.
What about that stat I sent you guys last night? That the Bears are the number one seed. They have the same record as the Niners, but somehow, statistically speaking, from an odds standpoint, the Bears have the greatest odds of not making the playoffs.
I mean, wild from a stat perspective, not that wild from a historic perspective of it's just like a bit. I think Pops even said it this morning where he's just like, I'm just waiting for the meltdown because like we kind of all feel it coming, like not taking anything away from the Bears, they're getting the wins, but not at any point watching any of those wins do you truly feel comfortable going like, yeah, that's the best team in the NFC.
I will 100% agree on that. Like that, I would have said in Pops, I know said it a few weeks ago that he was like the Rams is the best team in the NFC, and then after last week with the Panthers, you're just like, well, that's not the case anymore. You can't say it just every single week. This is the best team outside, and we'll get to them here in a second. Are the Patriots the best team in football?
Gosh, I mean, they looked like it in the first half. Yeah, last night. I mean, they just. I don't know if it's truly Vrabel. It really is hard to say that it's anything but Vrabel because of the way they're playing, and like he's the new variable, if you will. Play on words there with his name, but they really are. Like they have been the one. Ironic too that they lost to the Raiders week 1, but they really are. Like they're playing. But before yesterday, I would have said the Rams, and then probably like a close second, the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are slept on right now because they're not. I think the Rams are kind of overshadowing the Seahawks. But from an AFC standpoint, yeah, it's the Patriots hands down, and there's not even a close second because I don't think the Broncos are pretenders. I don't truly think they're as good as their record is showing.
Well, you take a look at some of the Broncos wins. It's like you have to remember they had to have that huge comeback against the Giants just to beat them. And I mean, Washington took them to overtime with Mariota. Like they
10-7 over the Raiders. Like they're not playing super fantastic football. They're just winning games.
You know who they sort of remind me of with these one-score wins is the Vikings that year with Kirk Cousins.
I was gonna say the Chiefs last year, but.
Because the Vikings had that huge comeback from behind win against the Colts, the largest in NFL history. And then they lost the first round to Danny Dimes of the Giants. So now you brought up Seattle. That's the next game Sunday. Seattle comes to Atlanta. Seattle's -7.5. I mean, they went up and did exactly what we sort of thought they were going to do, just beat the brakes off the Vikings. Reiterate why Sam Darnold should have been kept. Going against the Falcons, who, I mean, you just lost to the Jets.
Dude, the Falcons are like the quintessential always play to the level of their competition. So I would not be surprised if somehow the Falcons have this amazing game and play well against the Seahawks. The only reason why I would say hammer the Seahawks, though, is because Kirk Cousins is not playing like he wants to be the starting quarterback. Like, he's not having this Joe Flacco resurgence where he's like, look, I may be old and kind of washed, but, like, I can still sling the rock. Kirk Cousins looks like he's intentionally playing bad because he was happy just collecting a paycheck on the bench. Like, that's how the Falcons are playing right now. Bijan is amazing, so there's always that variable of him, like, having some fantastic random game. But, like, the Falcons are just truly so bad with Cousins because they weren't a great team with Penix anyway. But, like, there was at least some hope and, like, they've got some talent. They could surprise you. But, like, we saw them get blown out and blanked by the Panthers even with Penix. And now with Cousins in, dude, and the way he's playing, like, I'm going to take Seattle -7 all day long.
I agree with that. Do you think that Raheem Morris makes it after the year's up? Their head coach for the Falcons?
I mean, probably just because, I mean, like, what were your true expectations, honestly? Like, it was not like they were a great football team last year. You know what I mean? Like, they still just need a few. I don't know what the excuse me. I don't know what the puzzle piece that solves their problem is, but, like, I just think, like, firing a head coach when you have a bad season, when truly your expectations weren't that high anyway, is like what bad organizations do. And don't get me wrong, the Falcons is a bad organization, but I do think firing him this early would be a mistake.
I just want to remind you, they lost to the Panthers twice. One of those was 30-0. Now, the Panthers have been playing well, but still, that's the only thing that I sit back with the Falcons is from a divisional standpoint, I would have thought they would have been more competitive in their own division, and they're just not. That's the thing that if you're a Falcons fan, it's just a problem.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but at the same time, like, if you had to look in your heart of hearts as a Falcons fan, did you really have higher expectations than this? Like, truly, like, did you truly think like you were a better football team? Like, okay, maybe that's probably the wrong way to word that. Like, maybe, yes, a better football team, but, like, from an outcome perspective, like, did you truly, outside of pure hope, did you really think you were going to make the playoffs?
I'll
Being
be
competitive
honest with you.
is...
The Falcons have never had hope since they lost a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. Hope died in Atlanta that night.
Yes, no, you're right. I mean, for real. Like, they have not had or put together a solid football team since then.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying it's just the NFL is so much more prone to, like, turn over a staff because a staff in college can always bring in new players. And so if you recruit well, you're more likely to stay on longer just because there's a higher chance that next year it will look a lot different. But in the NFL, it's one of those ones that, if you're not winning right now, the guys we have on the roster are running out. And I hate it for them with Penix getting hurt. But it's like, this is the same coaching staff and GM that brought in Kirk Cousins. You paid him all that money, drafted Penix. Now, yes, Cousins doesn't look good, but that's like this, like, hindsight 20. You've talked about this before. It's like, it sort of like with the committee rankings that, like, oh, we ranked them here and they won, so we were justified in that. It's like, no, like, you were still the guys that paid $180 million to Cousins. Like, you got that wrong. Just because it looks like he was not the right guy when you drafted Penix now doesn't, like, assuage the fact that you paid all that money for him from the get-go. Like, that's my problem with the fact. Like, they've always made bad decisions as an organization, and it's what's killed them. So,
which I don't think is Raheem Morris's fault, though.
It's GM.
Like, yeah, sure. I mean, I think he could go.
We can hope. I would like to see the Falcons more competitive. I'm not a Falcons fan. They're the hometown team. It'd be nice to just see them, have some type of success. It makes for, people in Atlanta to just be happier.
Because, I mean, they talked about this when they drafted Penix. Like, one, the fact that you paid Kirk Cousins and then drafted a QB that high was silly. But the QB that you drafted was, like, the oldest dude in the draft and was injury prone. So it was like, what did you think was like this situation right now is the exact situation that everybody predicted when they drafted Penix. That's why it was such a bad pick when they did it.
Yes.
And you spent a first round on it.
Oh, we're going to get to this with the Steelers when I bring this up here towards when we get to their game. But it's like a great point that I know we've talked in past of like drafts and like great picks, bad picks, like where stuff has gone wrong. And when you spend the Steelers, I bring them up with like Kenny Pickett. It's like, why have the Steelers like struggled and like, why is the roster the way that it is now? It's like, well, you spent a first round pick on a kid that didn't pan out. And like, it set you back so much. When you draft a quarterback or, you know, especially in the first round and it doesn't work out and you look at all the things that you left on the table that could have helped the team, dude, you doom yourself from an organizational standpoint for like a good 5 years. Like it's just so difficult to recover from that. And I'm not saying that Penix is a bust, but from an injury standpoint, we know this has been a thing. You spend a first round talent. If he keeps getting hurt, like all that it does is dig the organization into a deep hole because you keep waiting on him to perform, but the roster gets older and it's harder to replace guys. You got to pay guys more money. You're playing on this rookie contract, and by the time that rookie contract's up, you're in this position of you either draft a new quarterback or you pay him a bunch of money, and most of the times they just pay guys a lot of money.
And mainly, it's not. It's mainly because like organizations, like you said, there's like this waiting period that they're like, is it going to pan out? Is it going to pan out? But they're almost pot committed where they go, hey, I mean, it was like the Giants. They go, hey, we made this dumb decision, and even though at this point it looks like a dumb decision, we have to double down on that dumb decision. Otherwise, we're like admitting we made a mistake, and nobody ever wants to admit that they made a mistake because they think like that's what's going to get you fired. And what ends up happening is you double down on that mistake, you become a worse football team, and that's what gets you fired. So it really is like a death spiral for these teams that do that, and that's why it sets them back so long because everybody wants to give dudes time to like develop and all that, but like the way that they're drafting these guys, it's like you didn't draft him to give him time. Like, let's be honest, call the spade a spade. You drafted him to come in and be the starter right now. So if you recognize in that next year, hey, it's not going to pan out, you just got to cut ties and move on. And like that's what will turn your program around. I think a perfect example of that is the Colts. They almost doubled down with Anthony Richardson, but they were able to finally just kind of go, you know what, dude, this isn't working out. And it's not even like they then spent a big draft capital to like replace him. They just went and got somebody else's trash. And look what Daniel Jones has done to him. You know what I mean? Like sometimes just like getting rid of that toxic or that bad player, it's like it just changes your outlook. And it's just like, oof, that's off our back. Now we can focus on going forward. We've seen that happen multiple times with teams when they like fire a head coach in the middle of the season. I think the perfect one is the Raiders a few years back, where it's like, were the Raiders still a bad team? Yeah. But all of a sudden when they got rid of Josh McDaniel, they started winning football games. And it was like it's like something just changes where it's like, whew, now we can just focus on playing the game. And bad organizations don't do that, and that's what sets them back so many years.
Yeah. That's why the Falcons are the Falcons. Next game, Bengals-Bills. Right now, the Bengals are sitting on the outside of the playoff. In terms of playoff standing, the Bengals are sitting at 12th. The Bills are sitting at 7th. They are literally holding on to the last wild card slot. Buffalo's -6. Surprisingly, the Bengals played the Ravens last week, and the Bengals defense, for the first time all year, showed up. Like, locked down the Ravens. The Bills had a good win against Pittsburgh, but we've seen the Bills also be inconsistent against Miami, against all multiple teams out there that the Bills have lost to that you're just like, what is going on? Do you think that Joe Burrow and the Bengals are able to square away and get another win and try to force their way into a playoff position?
It's possible. I think Joe Burrow coming back, if you asked me, I would have said it was a mistake. But by beating the Ravens, it's kind of like, hey, They're only 2 games back now with plenty of weeks to play. They can actually still salvage this season. Um, I think they hang and keep pace. Really, I mean, you talked about it's going to be how the Bills play offensively. Their defense is, I'll say, predictable. I won't say good or necessarily terribly bad in any one facet, but it's predictably average. But really, I think what the big inconsistencies of the Bills are is the offense. When Josh Allen comes out and has great games, or like yesterday they were running, or I guess 2 days ago they were running all over the Steelers, and that was working. So their offense was clicking in the right way. There's Josh Allen has 6 touchdowns in some other games, and like when they have those kinds of games, like when their offense is really clicking, yeah, they're a really good football team. Their defense, I feel like, still always shows up the same, neither good nor bad, but like it's really just dependent upon their offense. That being said, the Bengals do have a pretty bad defense, so I favor the Bills in the game. I do think, though, that the Bengals can keep it close because of how good their offense is. So give me the Bills on the money line, but give me the Bengals with the points.
If the Bengals defense can play the run like they did against the Ravens, they'll win the game against the Bills. Because I think that James Cook is sort of the linchpin for this Bills. As much as it is Josh Allen, I just think that it takes so much pressure off of Josh and really I would say a below average wide receiver core in the NFL for Bills, that when James Cook is running, the Bills are their offense just hums. It stretches out the defense. Josh can take off running. It creates a lot more problems. So if the Bengals can stop the run, keep Cook, let's say, less than 100 yards, I think they win. But if not, giving the Bills with the points. Next game, I don't even know where to begin with this one in terms of where do you go. Titans-Browns. I have no idea. I know Shador exited the game. It may be him. It may be Dylan Gabriel. It may be some dude that they just pull off the bench that's a future first-round pick. Maybe they'll just fly Carson Beck up there and just say, why don't you just start now against the Titans, who are 1-11. Cleveland's -4.5 because of Myles Garrett. That's the honest vibe that I'm getting, is that the Browns defense is just that good against a Titans team that's just that bad. You take it the Browns, or where are you at with this?
I wouldn't be surprised either way. The Browns defense is that good. We've seen Cam Ward specifically play good football. Like, he is doing his absolute best to keep that team competitive. I feel like every other person in that organization is doing the opposite. So that's why they're 1-11. So I wouldn't be surprised if they can just put it together for one game and come out with a victory. But again, this is one of those, like, make me choose. I can't pick the Titans. Like, we've seen the Browns do magical things, and they've pulled out a few victories that were unlikely this year. So I would have to take the Browns, but I really won't be surprised one way or the other.
Yeah. I will take the Browns as well, I know Myles Garrett's trying to get 25 sacks in the year. He's getting close, so I like the ability for the Browns defensively to take advantage of the Titans. We saw the Jags do that last week, and the Jags have, I would say, the same type of level, if not better than the Browns defensively, and they got after Cam Ward. Give me the Browns. Next game up, Commanders-Vikings. I sent you guys this. I got to read it again. If every single snap the quarterback took the ball and spiked it into the turf, the QBR rating for the game would be 39.6. J.J. McCarthy 2 weeks ago had a 34.2, which is less than 39.6 for those who are math illiterate. And also Max Brosmer, who played this past week, had one of 32.8, which is even worse than J.J. McCarthy's. And somehow Minnesota is favored in this game. -1.5. I don't get it. I like the Commanders in the game. I think that Mariota can play. If they can play like they did against the Broncos, I think that they come away with a win, minus that, bad throw at the end. Why do you think Minnesota's favored?
I have no idea. Like, there was nothing in that game that gave me any confidence about the Vikings. Their defense isn't that good. Their offense looks absolutely atrocious right now. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. Like, I think the Commanders, I won't say a good football team, but I think this is one of those teams that like is playing better football than their record really shows, even with Mariota. Like, I think the Commanders right now, we have this negative taste in our mouth because of how the season ended last year. Like, and we had these real high expectations, and then there is a significant drop off, I will say, from Jane Daniels to Mariota. However, I think it's more of like a perception thing. Like, we just feel like the Commanders are a bad team because they're not living up to expectations, and we were expecting them to like really compete in the NFC East. But I do think they're playing better football than their records giving them credit for. And I mean, I don't see it. I don't know what they're seeing in the Vikings. I guess they're just giving it to them because it's home field advantage, and maybe because Washington played Sunday night, it's like a shorter week or something. I really don't know. But like Aaron Jones might be hurt too. I don't know if he's going to be playing because he kind of re-injured his shoulder. He's having a hard time staying on the field. Like, Brosmer looked awful, so I don't get it. But yeah, give me the Commanders.
Next game, Dolphins-Jets. Miami's -2.5. Miami comes out, gets a win against the Saints. Jets get the win against the Falcons. Jets have honestly been playing better since they bitched Fields a few weeks ago, especially defensively. I feel like they're starting to come around to their coach's philosophy. The Dolphins, one of these teams that it all depends on like really how much drugs did their head coach take before the game, and is he able to stabilize on the spectrum enough to call a good game? Because there's times where he'll call a good game, and then there's times that, hey, you can kick a field goal for the win, or you can go for it on fourth down, and he's like, I'm going to go for it on fourth down instead of kicking it for the win. I don't know where to go on this is another game that I like sit back and it's like you could flip the coin 100 times. If you maybe hold a gun to my head, I'd take the Dolphins, but honestly, I feel like I should take the Jets in the game.
You're right. I'm going to take the Dolphins. I won't be surprised if the Jets pull it out, mainly just because the Dolphins, I'll tell you what, man, it was what week was that they lost, and we were just like, they're the worst team in football. I think it was when they got blown out by the Browns, maybe.
I'm pulling up their schedule right now.
Maybe week 7. I don't remember.
31-6 against the Browns.
Yeah, that might have been where we were just like, they are the worst team in football.
And then they lost to the Ravens 28-6. And then since then, they've beaten the Bills, Commanders, and Saints.
Yeah, like they've kind of been playing sneakily good football. Like there's times where they show up and you're like, dude, like this team's really not that bad. That being said, like when they came out and started, they were the first half of the Saints, like they were playing really good football. And you were like, dude, they're walking the Saints. Like this is going to get out of hand. And then all of a sudden it was just like, we'll let them back in the game. And they just like completely turned it off. And you're like, what's happening? Like they almost pulled an Eagles. So if they can stay engaged, I'm taking the Dolphins because like I think that I do think they're a better football team because I don't think the Jets are a good football team. But this is one of those where like I won't be surprised if like they get up by, maybe just 2 touchdowns, think the game's in hand, stop playing, and like let the Jets come back on them.
Yeah. I can see it for sure. It's just, you just never. I trust Miami's offense more than I trust the Jets. I guess that's the easier way to say it. Next game, Saints, Bucks. Tampa Bay's -8.5 point favorites. They ended up knocking the Cardinals out of playoff contention. I didn't even talk about that. This was the week that we had a bunch of eliminations. Titans are eliminated. Raiders are eliminated. Giants are eliminated. Saints and Cardinals are now eliminated. The Bucks are sitting number 4 seed right now in the playoff. You think they're able to get another win against really a team that sort of always plays them well in the Saints?
Yeah, this is one of those like interdivision rivalry games that somehow ends up being tough. I do think the Bucks take care of business. The Saints are in a bad spot, just kind of like some of these other teams, like the Titans and the Browns right now. Like they don't have a true quarterback that they can trust. They don't, their run game is pretty much non-existent. their defense is doing okay things, but nothing super spectacular. I think the Bucks just need to come out and not try to do anything super fantastical. Like they've kind of had their own inconsistencies, but I think if they just come out and go, "Hey, we're at home. If we just play our brand of football," getting Bucky Irving back was a huge boost to that offense. I think the Bucks handle business.
The Bucks handle business, but I think that the Saints cover the spread 8.5. I'm not a fan of the spread.
That's a good take, just because the Bucks have played a lot of one-score games this year. I don't think they're winning by 2 scores in most of their games, kind of all season.
Next game up, Colts, who are reeling. I mean, they were sitting there 8-2, then lose to the Chiefs 2 weeks ago, and then the Texans this past week, sitting 8-4 against in-conference opponent, also sitting 8-4. I feel like a very sneaky 8-4 Jacksonville team. Indy's only favored by 1.5 at Jacksonville. I think that the thing me and you had talked beforehand, the Texans' defense is good, and they clearly, have frustrated Danny Dimes.
Yes.
I sort of sit back and I look at Jacksonville, and I think they're going to do the same thing. Like, I feel like teams have now scripted, like, we're starting to see bad Daniel Jones, and until that changes and they're able to run, mainly if they can't run the football with Jonathan Taylor, they struggle offensively.
That's 100%. Like, you talked about it with James Cook, like, that couldn't be more true with the Colts. And I think it is if Jonathan Taylor scores a touchdown, the Colts win the game. If Jonathan Taylor does not score a touchdown, they lose the game. And this is one of those like hangover of information types of things with Danny Dimes. Like, was he playing very good football at the beginning of the year? Yes. But were they also running the ball extremely well? Yes. So, like, he has fallen off. And I think he's playing with a broken fibula, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
He's got like a broken bone in his leg, and he's playing through it. So he's doing fine when you know that information, but at the same time, like, it also explains a little bit of his fall off. So you're right. I think that the Jags defense is comparable, not as good, but comparable to the Texans. I will say I think the Jags defense is a little more opportunistic from like turnover standpoint, and Danny Dimes is subject to turnovers. So that's what it's going to come down to me. If the Jags can win over the turnover battle, they will win the game. If Daniel Jones is able to take care of the ball, or they're able to really control the game with the run game, I do think that the Colts could win through Jonathan Taylor. I do think it's a good, evenly matched game, though, so I do like the line at 1.5.
I'll take the Colts just from I'm just never going to bet on Trevor Lawrence to win the game. That's the real. If I've learned anything in the past, it's almost like betting on the Jets. You lose money on that end, so I'm going to take the Colts. Next game up, Steelers-Ravens. Me and my dad got to go up to Pittsburgh. I mean, it's a great city, great time, awful football team. I mean, the Bills were out 2 starting offensive tackles. The Bills' defense has been run on multiple times through good backs, and the Steelers looked like they had never played a down of football. Dude, it was painful. If I can say anything about the Steelers, my dad said this, and linebackers played awful, and TJ Watt, they ran away from the whole time. And I know me and you I was at the game, so I didn't get to hear it, but you were saying Tony Romo was calling the game, talking about the runs that the Bills kept doing. Yeah,
it was just like there was no surprise. Like, every time that showed up, like, Tony Romo would recognize the formation, and he just like, yep, here we go again, outside zone. Like, and it was because it was working. And like, good on the Bills. We've seen that so many times in the NFL or just in football in general, where like you've got this thing that's like really working, and for whatever reason, coaches like will refuse to just keep running the same play. They like try to mix it up, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, just keep doing the thing that is working. And the Bills did that. It was like they were just spamming outside zone, left and right. Whatever side TJ Watt's on, go to the opposite. And it was working. So good on the Bills for recognizing that and taking advantage of it.
Yeah. The Steelers defense, the other issue I saw was I think they have some good rookies. Last name Black, number 90, I think he's 94, 95 defensive tackle. He played well. Their biggest issue, I was telling this to my dad, is like Cam Hayward, don't get me wrong, I think he's over that like prime age. He's going downhill. Is he a liability? No. But for what they're paying him, it's a problem. Because when you pay a guy that much, you're expecting J.J. Watt numbers, and you're not getting those. That's like I have, from a business standpoint, and I think a lot of times I wish we should do like a whole episode on this from like just a business philosophy of so many times you sit back and you're like, why are they not paying this guy the money? And it's like, because he's not worth that dollar amount. Is he a good player? Yes. But from a standpoint of like how much of the cap he's going to eat up to pay him, he's not performing to that level. That's
Chris
the
Jones
way
is a perfect example as well.
Say that again.
I said Chris Jones is like a perfect example of that as well.
100%. Him and Hayward are honestly the same player right now. Are they bad? No. But are they making this like game playing or game changing plays based upon the money that they're getting paid? Absolutely not. Like every single week you hear about Chris Jones, like, well, this is the time you're going to see him. It's like, I saw him. He didn't do anything, but I saw him. He's out there. That's how I feel about Hayward. And the Steelers defense, towards the end of the game, they literally started lining TJ Watt up at defensive tackle because they were like, we can't stop it. So we'll just line him up in the middle. I sit back, and if that happens against the Ravens, Derrick Henry should have, 200 yards. But at the same time, I thought Derrick Henry was going to have 200 yards against the Bengals, and the Bengals ended up winning that game. So,
yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the Ravens at this point. Like, it doesn't seem like Derrick Henry is too old. Like I haven't watching the games. Like you're not getting this vibe of like, ooh, he's lost a step, or like, ooh, man, he looks slow back there. I'm not seeing that, but the numbers are essentially proving that. And again, I don't necessarily think that's true. I said this earlier, and I don't really have any data to back it. What it feels like to me on the Ravens is that like they're almost forcing this, we're trying to win Lamar another MVP type of offense. And again, I don't know if it's just the play calls or like what they changed, but like when I watch the game, that's what it feels like. There's times where like they'll call these plays and I'm like, why did they do that? Like, why are they trying to get Lamar on the outside? Or like, why are they throwing there when you've got literally Derrick Henry in the back? And that's my best guess. That's total conjecture. I'm pulling that out of thin air, but like that's what it feels like to the Ravens, and their offense is just not clicking whatsoever. Their defense is super banged up still, so like that's obviously a problem, but their offense isn't able to overcome it because they're not clicking. Like they're not calling good plays. They've got nothing going for them. It's very, very strange. They've got the talent for sure. So you're right. Like if they learned from last week and watch what the Bills do, they should be able to take advantage of that. I'll be honest. I don't know if they're going to call the plays in order to do it.
The positive news for the Ravens is they're not going against Joe Burrow in that offense. The Steelers, dude, I was crying. I was in the bathroom, peeing, and some dude at the urinal next to me, he just goes, it would be great if we had another wide receiver. I don't know, maybe somebody like George Pickens who's just tearing up the league. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And it's like everyone in the bathroom started laughing.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, the Steelers have had like characters on the like they dealt with Antonio Brown, they dealt with Le'Veon Bell, like they've had so many different guys on that team that you're like this dude could be a problem, but they've like made it work. But like somehow they couldn't make it work with Pickens, and he's dominating. It's like I'm not saying that Steelers would be a completely different team, but him and Metcalf would be like him and CeeDee Lamb. Like they put so much attention on Metcalf because that's the only guy that they have. And they can't do that with CD because you have George. So it's like it opens up the offense. And the Steelers just don't have – it's Aaron Rodgers last year. Like so much for going all out for the Steelers and like making a run because they got him one wide receiver. The Steelers offense sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean – I saw a meme the other day. It was like the Cowboys trading for Pickens for like a 3rd and 5th rounder or something, whatever the actual trade was. And it was like a dude trading like a dirty diaper for like a MacBook Pro or something like that. Like it was kind of, which I mean, kind of when you think about it, like he's really performing to that level. Yeah. That being said, as good as we thought that division was going to be, it is turning out to be a very like NFC South type of situation. So as bad as the Steelers are playing, like they only need a few more wins and they you know that division's wide open, I'll say that. So
yeah, it's between the Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals, it's still one of those 3 teams can win this division. Next team up, we talked about the Broncos. They're 10-2 playing against the Raiders, who are 2-10. Broncos are 7.5-point favorites, that's the more surprising stat on this line. I feel like the Broncos have played bad teams close, but at the same time, the Broncos are sitting here 10-2. The Raiders have just shown me nothing that I sit back and go, I feel like they're going to keep this game close this week.
yeah, I mean, they shouldn't. The Broncos' offense is very up and down. Like they've shown, I mean, they put up like 30 points in the 4th quarter, a few weeks ago. So like they have the ability. For whatever reason, they're just very inconsistent and not super explosive. Consistently. That would be the only reason that it does stay close, as if the Broncos' offense just struggles the whole game. But you're right. Like Genty. There's definitely talent there. He needs a better line to block for him. He's doing the best he can, but they need a new quarterback so bad. Like, so bad. Geno Smith is just he's not the answer. And I don't think the Raiders ever thought he was the answer. They kind of just were like hey, we don't want to draft anybody, or we didn't have the draft capital to take anybody. And, there was a Pete Carroll connection there, but this is 100% just like rebuilding. They're just biding their time they would be better off losing these games now to ensure themselves a higher draft pick.
For sure. Yeah. If there's anything the Raiders should do, it's just tank for the rest of the season to try to guarantee yourself a high draft pick. Next game, big one for monumental for Pops. Bears at the Packers. Packers are -6.5 in the game. At the end of this game, is Pops going to be thinking about driving off the road, or is Pops starting to stitch a new place next to the 85 Bears as a possible Super Bowl team?
No, I think he's going to be upset at the end of this game.
Why so?
I don't think I think the Packers, I called them pretenders earlier on. They've really played better football than, as of late, they've played better football than they showed at the beginning. I think a lot of their wins at the beginning were luckier, and Jordan Love was not playing good football. That being said, the last few weeks, Jordan Love's played some pretty darn good football, so I can't argue that. And I also think the Bears, it's like a flip-flops of seasons. Like, I think the Bears right now are not playing, they're playing fine. Like, I'm not saying they're playing bad, but like this is one of those, like, I don't think the record I don't know if there's anybody out there that truly believes that the Bears are the best team in football right now, like, or the best team in the NFC. No one truly believes that, unless you're crazy. They've played inconsistent. They've had trouble like consistently getting into the end zone, and Pops talked about it. They're just not converting in the red zone. Like, again, they're winning games, and it's you're not taking it away from them, but they don't look super convincing doing it. They're settling for a lot of field goals or going for it on 4th down, and like at some point it's going to come back and bite them. And I think the Packers are a good enough team to do that to them. You can't take it away from them. They've exceeded expectations, and Ben Johnson, just like Vrabel, has done a fantastic job with this team. And I'm not saying like this is the end of the Bears. Like, they're still going to make the playoffs more than likely, and I hope they continue going, getting better. But I do think the Packers take this game.
Caleb struggled pretty good in the red zone, which is they've been able to drive the ball, but I think that sometimes when you're in the red zone, it's just less field. And I mean that by safeties are able to play farther up because they're not worried about getting beat deep. It forces quarterbacks to make very quick decisions, of which I don't think Caleb makes like quick decisions. He's great like from an arm standpoint on the run. Like he'll hit some guys that you're like, man, that was great. But when you're in the red zone, it's like, do you have very small windows? The ball's got to come out right now. And I think that's why they struggled in the red zone. It's just like Caleb's inability. And they asked Ben Johnson about it, which I thought he gave a great answer. Is they were like, hey, man, like passing yards and like third down conversions. And he's like, look, I'm glad that we got the win. He goes, but we got some things we got to work on if we want to get to the position that we want to be at. And he's really talking about the passing game in that standpoint of just being able to score touchdowns. If that doesn't, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm not making excuses for Caleb Williams. I do think that it stems from though that he's still not 100% confident in his O-line. Like you can tell the way he plays. You're right. When he's able to kind of like sit back there and like get a little bit of time, or like he makes time by for himself by scrambling around. I mean, you can make an argument he's got the most talented arm in football. Like the throws he makes and the velocity that he puts behind some of his balls is fantastic. The decision making, one, you're right. I think his decision making is slower, but I think some of that stems from like he's still not super confident behind that O-line. With right, he's kind of got a right to be. Like there's times where his O-line lets him down, and I think that's kind of like this, even when it's not happening, it's in the back of his mind where he's still not sure that he's not going to get blown up immediately. So I think his processing is just slower because he's kind of like taking an extra second of like, am I going to get destroyed? Do I have the time to stand in here? And by the time he's done processing that, the window that he should have been throwing the ball has already passed.
Yeah. I don't know what Jordan Love we're going to see. Like, history has told me to take the Packers, but last year Chicago, I believe, beat the Packers twice, like in the season. I'll take a wing and a prayer. I'm going to say the Bears get the upset and the Bears go on to beat the Packers and maybe change the tides, but it's not done with confidence. It's more done for sympathy for Pops, and hopefully he lives to see next week. Next afternoon game, Rams-Cardinals. Rams minus 8.5. Do they have a bounce back game after the loss against Panthers?
They should. I mean, losing to the Panthers, you think like, man, they must have had a bad game. And don't get me wrong, like Stafford threw, I think, 2 or 3 picks, but they weren't playing terrible football. Like I was watching the game, like it was more or less just like we said it. We're like, who are these Panthers? Like they played just a really good game, and it just was too much at the end for the Rams. Now without those turnovers, the Rams probably do win the game, but that's part of the way it rolls out. But yeah, I think the Cardinals are playing better football. With Jacoby Brissett, I think they're keeping things competitive. So 8 might be a lot for the Rams unless they come out with just like absolute vengeance with the trying to get revenge from losing to the Panthers. But again, this is one of those like interdivisional games that like I don't see it really getting out of hand. So I think the Cardinals will keep it closer than 8, but I do think the Rams win.
You think we're done with Kyler Murray on the Cardinals?
You would think. I mean, if I was running that organization, I would be. It's been too long for too little results. And when you can bring in a guy like Jacoby Brissett and get like almost better results, you kind of just go like, what's the point? Why would you keep trying? I mean, we just talked about this with like, you got to just call a spade and go like, is Kyler Murray talented? Sure. But like, he's not the one that's going to turn your organization around. You got to go in a different direction.
Yeah. Next game up, Sunday night game. Mahomes says that they need to win out in order to assure themselves a playoff spot, which he is not wrong. Going against the Texans, who I want to just remind you, started off the season 0-3. They had then 2 wins, a loss against Seattle, a win against the Niners, lose against the Broncos, but here they are 4 straight against the Jags, Titans, Bills, and Colts, now going to Kansas City. Who gets, do the Chiefs get back on track and get a win, or do the Texans make it 5 straight?
I won't be surprised either way, because Patrick Mahomes is right. Like, they've got to win out, and that's the mentality that they're going to bring in. That being said, they probably thought that this last week too, and couldn't pull it out against the Cowboys. The one thing I will say is that C.J. Stroud is not playing good football. I know he was concussed the last couple weeks, but like, he came back and he's not playing good football. They're not running the ball super great either. They've won these last 4 games on defense and defense alone. Like, their defense is fantastic, and I can't stress that enough. That like, that is why they're winning football games. It plays well into their hand that the Chiefs are also not doing super well on offense. So like, that could be the difference maker in this game. However, I will never count the Chiefs out from scoring points with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. So that's going to be kind of the difference maker for me. If the Chiefs can come out and score points, they're going to win. Because even though the Texans' defense is so good, their offense is not. And they will get outscored. Like, again, if the Chiefs can score points, their offense is not going to be able to keep up, and they'll lose the game. If they can have some like amazing get Patrick under pressure all day, and like, maybe he is a little interception prone, so like, maybe if they can take some opportunities and take the ball away, that's their one chance of winning.
You said this during the game with the Chiefs Cowboys. It was one of those times that we saw calls that honestly should have went the other way and not been called, or not against the Chiefs, go against the Chiefs. It was one of those like rare occasions that's happened. The Chiefs, I still feel like we're the better team in that game. Like, they should have came away with a victory. They just didn't.
Agreed.
So I'm in the same boat with you. Like, I've watched Stroud too, and honestly, David Mills played better. And against a SPAG defense, it's hard for me to take C.J. Stroud to live up to what I think is going to occur on the other. I think that the Texans defense can get pressure, but unless the Texans defense is able to also score for their offense, I think Kansas City is going to be too much. I like the line. I'd take Kansas City in the points -3.5 on Sunday night.
I like it.
Monday night, Eagles, Chargers. Herbert had surgery on his non-throwing hand. They're saying he's day-to-day going against the Eagles, who are sitting back, and you just losses against both, the Bears and to Dallas back-to-back weeks. Philly right now is -2.5. They're both 8-4. Honestly, I feel like they're sort of the same team. I really can't. I think on paper, you sit back and go, oh, this team should be pretty good. But when you watch them, you go, there's definitely something wrong with this team. The Chargers, more so injuries on the offensive line. The Eagles, it's just whoever's calling the offensive plays is an idiot. Where you got on the game?
Yeah, this is going to sound crazy, but like, the Eagles, to me, are like the same team as like the Falcons. It's just like, you have no idea what could show up. Like, the Falcons is like the bad version. The Eagles are just built better. But from like I have no idea what team is showing up. It's the Eagles. And it's funny because they made this huge stink about A.J. Brown making a huge stink about getting the ball. And ever since they started forcing the ball to A.J. Brown, he's been playing out of his mind and haven't like really shown up. But the Eagles are losing games. So again, it's like, do we need to just go back to like, hand the ball to Barkley, let Jalen Hurts back up and run? Like, because that's what was winning them games at the beginning of the season. But ever since they've started like, and it's weird because like, the passing game has been successful. Like, A.J. Brown had like 10 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's a successful passing day, but they're losing games. And you kind of go like, what's the priority here? Like, I feel like everybody got caught up in that organization, everybody got caught up in like individual productions and like who was getting the ball and all that, and they like lost sight of like what's important, winning football games. And like ever since they started, it feels like trying to force the ball to squeaky wheels, they've been losing football games. So I think the Eagles should win. And the Chargers have been inconsistent as well, but I don't know. This is like you said it. They're like the same team. It's a good toss up here. Obviously, if Herbert doesn't play, that swings it, hugely in the favor of the Eagles. But I'm going to keep taking the Eagles, and I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall here because I do feel like they're one of the best built teams on paper. So they should win, but, I don't know. I really don't.
I like the Eagles as well for their defensive line against a banged-up Chargers offensive line, and especially if Herbert's hurt, any of those questions, it's easier to take the Eagles in it. If the Eagles' offense plays like they have the last 2 weeks, they lose. Like, plain and simple.
Yeah.
It's just they look horrific. Offensively, completely lost. If they come out and they continue those same patterns, they're going to lose. I think the solution to the Eagles is you got to hand the ball off to Saquon. Like everything is built around Saquon. I think that sort of like with Rodgers, I don't see it too much with the Eagles. I think that they should use more play action pass. Like we're going to act like we're giving the Saquon, and when we act like it, we'll boot it and get Jalen on the run, allow him to either run or throw. But the zone read stuff with Saquon, I don't like. I think they need to go lean way more into we have Saquon. You're going to have to stop him, and when you don't, we're going to boot it and do other things to you to really focus on Saquon. That's my solution for the Eagles.
I agree.
But that wraps up the next week of NFL action, week 14. You got anything else before we close it out?
That's it.
All right. Well, time to pull chalks. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.